Nations do not move by friendship. They move by interest. That simple truth has shaped every alliance, every treaty, and every turning point in modern history. Today, the growing cooperation between Burkina Faso and Algeria must be understood through that same realistic lens. This is not a symbolic handshake. It is a strategic step within a broader South-South partnership that is quietly redefining the political landscape of the Sahel and North Africa. Burkina Faso, together with its partners in the Alliance of Sahel States, is attempting something different. Instead of negotiating alone and reacting to external pressure, it is building a unified diplomatic front. Algeria, a nation with deep revolutionary roots and strong experience in energy and resource management, has signaled its support for sovereignty and internal development. But support in international affairs is never abstract. It must translate into measurable results. The real question is whether this cooperation can move beyond speeches and ceremonies and become tangible added value for both nations. Under the strategic direction of Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso is seeking precisely that transformation. The geopolitical landscape of the Sahel is no longer what it was a decade ago. Power balances are shifting. Traditional partnerships are being questioned. New alliances are emerging with a stronger emphasis on sovereignty and regional coordination. In this evolving environment, cooperation between Burkina Faso and Algeria must be viewed as part of a wider strategic recalibration. Algeria stands as one of Africa's most experienced energy producers, with decades of managing hydrocarbons and navigating complex international negotiations. It also carries the legacy of a hard-fought independence struggle, which continues to shape its diplomatic posture. Algeria often frames its foreign policy around sovereignty, non-interference, and solidarity among developing nations. Meanwhile, the Alliance of Sahel States, which includes Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, represents a new attempt to consolidate political and security strategies within the region. Rather than approaching global powers separately, these countries are increasingly aware that negotiating individually can weaken their leverage. A collective diplomatic voice provides greater weight and stability. For ordinary citizens, this geopolitical shift is not an abstract debate. When energy supplies fluctuate or security deteriorates, families feel the consequences directly. Stable partnerships in energy and resource management can influence fuel prices, transportation costs, and national revenue. In that sense, strategic diplomacy is not distant politics. It is closely tied to economic stability and national dignity. South-South cooperation is often mentioned in speeches, but its real meaning is sometimes misunderstood. At its core, it refers to collaboration among developing nations based on shared experience, mutual respect, and practical exchange of skills rather than dependency. It is not charity. It is not ideological alignment. It is a structured effort to strengthen internal capacity through partnership. In the case of Burkina Faso and Algeria, this concept moves beyond rhetoric. Algeria brings decades of experience in hydrocarbons, geological surveys, and state-managed energy systems. Burkina Faso brings significant mineral potential and a strong determination to increase local control over its resources. When these strengths are combined, cooperation becomes technical and operational rather than symbolic. The difference from traditional aid models is important. In older frameworks, external partners often financed projects while maintaining control over expertise and strategic direction. South-South cooperation aims instead at transferring knowledge, training local engineers, and building domestic capacity to manage resources independently. If technical training programs succeed, Burkina Faso could gradually reduce reliance on external contractors. If energy supply chains are strengthened, fuel distribution could become more stable. These are concrete outcomes that affect daily life. Cooperation becomes meaningful only when it improves management skills, creates employment, and strengthens national institutions. Otherwise, it remains a slogan. The current approach suggests an attempt to move from declaration to implementation. In international affairs, interests guide decisions more than emotions. Algeria and Burkina Faso both understand this reality. Their growing cooperation is not based on sentiment alone. It reflects calculated strategic objectives on both sides. For Algeria, expanding engagement in West Africa strengthens its diplomatic presence beyond North Africa. It opens opportunities for energy partnerships, technical services, and broader political influence within the continent. By supporting sovereignty-driven governments in the Sahel, Algeria reinforces its long-standing image as a nation that values independence and regional solidarity. For Burkina Faso and its partners within the Alliance of Sahel States, Algeria represents experience and technical depth. Managing hydrocarbons, building state energy systems, and conducting geological exploration require expertise that cannot be improvised overnight. Access to that knowledge can accelerate national development and reduce costly dependence on distant actors. This relationship is therefore pragmatic. Algeria seeks influence and partnership. Burkina Faso seeks technology, training, and strategic diversification. There is nothing negative about such realism. Transparency and balance are what determine whether strategic interests become mutually beneficial or one-sided. When interests are clearly defined and openly negotiated, cooperation can become stable. When they are hidden or misunderstood, tension grows. The key for both nations is to align strategic calculations with long-term development goals. In that alignment, practicality becomes strength rather than weakness. The direction of Burkina Faso's foreign policy cannot be separated from the leadership style of Ibrahim Traore. His public statements consistently emphasize sovereignty, internal development, and dignity in international negotiations. Under his leadership, cooperation is framed not as dependence but as structured exchange designed to strengthen national capacity. One of the most significant shifts has been the move from reactive diplomacy to coordinated strategy, rather than negotiating separately with powerful actors. Burkina Faso works increasingly within the Alliance of Sahel States to build a unified diplomatic posture. This collective approach changes the tone of engagement. It signals that cooperation must respect mutual interests and shared regional stability. Traore's perspective is also grounded in economic realism. Natural resources, in his view, must serve national development before external markets. This principle influences negotiations in mining, hydrocarbons, and energy supply. Agreements are expected to include training, technology transfer, and measurable benefits for the domestic workforce. Importantly, symbolic Pan-African language is paired with practical mechanisms. Working groups, technical committees, and implementation frameworks replace vague declarations. This reflects an understanding that sovereignty is not sustained by rhetoric alone. It requires institutional strength and operational competence. By linking strategic alliances with internal reform, Traore attempts to reshape Burkina Faso's external relationships. Cooperation with Algeria, therefore, becomes a test case. If it delivers concrete results, it validates a broader diplomatic philosophy built on unity, realism, and long-term national interest. Whenever new regional alliances begin to reshape established patterns, reactions follow. The growing cooperation between Burkina Faso, the Alliance of Sahel States, and Algeria has not gone unnoticed by Western observers. Some analysts express concern that the Sahel is drifting away from traditional partners. Others question whether new South-South arrangements can deliver sustainable results or maintain transparency. These concerns are not entirely surprising. For decades, security cooperation, development financing, and resource management in the region were closely linked to Western institutions. A shift toward diversified partnerships naturally alters that landscape. However, diversification should not automatically be interpreted as confrontation. Sovereign nations retain the right to broaden their diplomatic and economic options. Critics sometimes argue that new alliances may lack efficiency or financial capacity. Yet this perspective often overlooks a central objective of the current approach. The goal is not to replace one dependency with another. It is to strengthen internal competence so that partnerships become more balanced. When technical knowledge is transferred, when engineers are trained locally, and when supply chains are stabilized, resilience increases regardless of the partner's origin. In practical terms, the value of cooperation will be measured by outcomes that citizens can observe. If fuel supply becomes more consistent, transportation costs stabilize. If geological expertise improves, mining revenues can be better managed. If local technicians acquire advanced skills, national industries grow stronger. These are tangible indicators of progress. For families in Burkina Faso, strategic diplomacy becomes meaningful only when daily life improves. Energy reliability affects agriculture, small businesses, and household expenses. Training programs influence employment opportunities for younger generations. Stronger institutions reduce vulnerability to external shocks. Therefore, the debate should not focus solely on geopolitical alignment. It should examine whether cooperation produces measurable added value. If it does, criticism will gradually lose intensity. If it fails, skepticism will grow naturally. Ultimately, a confident and capable nation is better positioned to engage with all global actors, including Western partners, from a place of dignity and mutual respect rather than structural dependence. The partnership between Burkina Faso and Algeria represents more than diplomatic courtesy. It reflects a calculated attempt to reshape cooperation through realism, sovereignty, and measurable outcomes. South-South collaboration only gains credibility when it strengthens institutions, stabilizes energy systems, and develops human capital. Otherwise, it remains symbolic. For Burkina Faso and its partners in the Alliance of Sahel States, the objective is clear. Unity increases negotiating strength. Diversification reduces vulnerability. Strategic clarity prevents dependency. In this evolving Africa new landscape, cooperation must generate tangible added value rather than political theater. Under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traore, this vision aligns with a broader Pan-African aspiration. It echoes the principles of Pan-Africanism that emphasize dignity, self-reliance, and collective progress. Yet it also reflects modern pragmatism. The African Union has long promoted regional integration, but integration only succeeds when implementation follows intention. The true measure of success will not be found in communiques. It will be found in stronger national capacity, fairer agreements, and improved daily life for citizens. If Burkina Faso and Algeria translate shared ideals into operational results, they may offer a practical example of how Pan-African cooperation can evolve beyond rhetoric. That possibility defines the strategic significance of Ibrahim Traore's approach today.